Drain and crumb life. Drain and crumb
All right, Michael. Well, thank you for coming on the show today. You had some very interesting things in your bio, and I was very curious to hear a little bit about you and what you do. And I'm sure I can come up with tons of questions to ask you because I have a very curious mind as of yourself that works with minds. And let's just go ahead and start with maybe you can give me a quick bio of yourself and what you do.
Okay. Well, been doing what I do, which I entitle Reality Realignment Engineering. Most people know me as a hypnotist. Actually goes a lot deeper than that. Started in 1984, so as of May this year, it's 37 years that I've been on
Wow.
this journey. And kind of an interesting way. Maybe we can get a little later into the deeper way of how it actually progressed. I started off when I was a kid wanting to be a world-known magician. Ran across some things that happened in my life. Um, Through hypnosis that I saw. And like everybody else at first, of course, I thought, okay, it's got to be a trick or people are playing along, the
Right.
usual myths. Um, Went out and read a book when I was 18. I studied a little bit into it. I was in just about 18 years old, and I literally read a book, and it had one simple little script in it. And I'm a person that likes to just throw caution to the wind. So I went out that night and literally just said, hey, I'm a hypnotist with no prior experience whatsoever in hypnosis.
That's awesome.
And being very gregarious, and literally probably 8 out of 10 people went instantly into trance, and it
Whoa.
just amazed me. And 37 years later, I haven't lost that feeling of amazement watching what the human mind's capable of. And so
That is incredible. One thing you said you had an encounter with the hypnotist when you were young. Is that what you meant? Um, did you say that right?
I had actually with things of hypnosis.
Right.
I named Bob Snow, who
Mhm.
was a police detective that's written a book and done the circuit for years. Um, he worked with my uncle, who was a Superior Court judge in Indiana. And on a dare, Bob went in and did a past life regression session. Okay. Now, Bob
Mm.
was one of those thinking, very highly analytical guys, and he did it on a dare because somebody said, oh, are you afraid? I said,
And
well, I
I'm
just don't believe it.
yeah, I'm sure he didn't believe it, right?
No, not at all. None.
Mhm.
Well, long story short, Bob took a tape recorder with him back in those days. Of course, that's, how we recorded everything.
Yeah. Old tape
Dating
deck.
myself a little bit, but yeah. So he took that with him. He said for about the first half hour, nothing really happened. And then all of a sudden, all this information started to pour out of him. And he wasn't even convinced at first, but he took some of these key points on this tape. And it was information that he had no way of knowing. It seemed he thought, okay, it came from my imagination or somewhere I heard it, it's part of my subconscious. And he spent the next 10 years of his life tracking down these 16 key points of information. And they end up
Wow.
writing a book and now talks about it that's called The Life of Carol Beckwith. I won't spoil. You can go. It's a very long, detailed story, but and it's not someone that was in the public eye. It's not someone that anybody would really know. But Carol Beckwith was a painter, and the things that led Bob to find out that he wrote the book about that said, yes, I was Carol Beckwith in a previous life. So
Whoa.
that I found very interesting, and knowing Bob through my uncle on a personal level, it intrigued me. Well,
Mhm.
then the life of Edgar Casey. I don't know if any of your listeners are real familiar with Prophet Edgar Casey, who was a little small town doctor from Kentucky, who was a very prolific prophet. Didn't write in quatrains. He's been more spot on than Nostradamus or anybody else. Well, the way he began, he would give like these readings in trance. Okay. And the very first time that he went into what people call a trance state is he lost his voice, I believe, at 19 years old. And being in the medical profession, he went tried every remedy there was to get his voice back. Nothing worked. So finally, he went to a hypnotist. Ends up, voice comes back after the first session. Well, in the process of what he went through and being told to relax, lean back on the couch, put his arms on his chest, um, he went into a deep trance. Didn't remember most of the session. He found this intriguing, but Then it happened that when he would lay down and put himself in that specific state, boom, the mind went instantly back, and he started spouting this information. Well, to jump forward in the story a little bit, years later, he was well known. People would come to him for medical diagnosis, and Edgar would simply put himself in this position, lay back, go into trance, and proceed to tell them exact medically what was wrong with him. And not only that, the cure for it, which some of the things that he diagnosed. And this became so prolific. People from all over the world were coming to him, very well known, high end people. Um, then they started coming to him for sports scores, etc. So you can read more on his story.
Yeah, for sure.
That was the second thing that really intrigued me, because one of the things he asked later in life in an interview, when they said, well, listen, you not only can diagnose a person and when they come to you, but someone can come to you with a name and a location, and you simply hear that and diagnose that person that's not even in front of you, you've never met. And he said, yes. And they said, well, where does this information come from? And he said, well, that's easy. The person's subconscious.
Whoa.
Well, for me, a little bell went on. And I said, wait a minute, if there's something that can even be transmitted across time and space, that's a part of our subconscious, that is that powerful, something I want to delve into.
So that brings up a question. Have you ever heard of remote viewing in the government? How they said they had a secret program where they would try to, the men who stare at goats. Have you ever heard of that movie?
Yeah.
That
I've
do
actually
you think?
They're
So
very interesting. This way, they're very. I looked at some of your things. And I know that you guys are, and I don't even use the word conspiracy because most people don't know that's actually been
that's
drew into your mind, defined as
yes.
something bad. Okay,
Right.
so
exactly.
Open
Truth.
theory is
Yeah.
I like to.
That's a good one.
But,
Yeah. So that's crazy. So do you think? What do you think that is? Like you said, it's a subconscious where you can maybe pinpoint someone through your mind. Do you think everybody has that power that just hasn't tapped into it, or do you think there's special abilities that some people might have?
no, I don't think it's anything special. I think some people are special enough to tap into it and not block it. I think we're born
Yeah.
with it. I think
Mhm.
it's a very natural part of who we are. Um, One of the things that Edgar went to explain of when he went to because a lot of his predictions, if you look, are not just about medical. He started doing everything, and he's time and date specific when the stock
Wow.
market would happen back in the 20s, when World War II would begin and start, and they're all spot on. And they're still he did 14,000 predictions, I think. Some are they're still and they're not real cryptic. They're point blank
Yeah.
what
Straight up.
they're about. Some have dates, some don't. Um,
That's incredible. So I guess if you're doing a thing like that, it's not like if you start getting hundreds in a row wrong, I mean, you're done, right?
Right. Well, back in Nostradamus, that's why he wrote in quatrains, because if it was considered heresy, and they would actually burn you at the stake for it. So
Wow.
that's why he wrote in quatrains, and some of his can be, I think, misconstrued or lost over the time. But my main key thing was, hey, wait a minute, if that power's in there, and like I said, Edgar said something about he called it the God consciousness, is literally what he referred to. So, and he said it's a part of everything in this place that he went to, as far as the time predictions and what would happen in the future. When he would ask about it, he goes, well, when you go to this place, okay, there is no past, future, time. It's everything that ever was, ever could be, every possibility. Basically, what we refer to as the multiple worlds theory now that they're starting to discuss.
Multiverses
Right.
and different outcomes for you took this road, and in another world you took another road, and then third road you went straight, and it's just like an endless possibilities type of deal. So in that, do you think time exists? And I know that's a weird question, but like, okay, let me explain.
No, it's not actually for me. If part of what I don't know if you read in any of my bio or whatever, but I've also been a paranormal researcher for most of my life, and very actively so. And what I mean by paranormal is not just ghosts. Our tagline, matter of fact, says the paranormal is much more than ghosts. And I have a background in quantum mechanics and all that. So,
nice.
I think it's a construct that we exist within is my best explanation of it.
So maybe like that guy was saying, it's like there was when he went into that subconscious, he had the feeling of there was no time, almost like eternal, right? I wonder if it's like a loop, like we're maybe like because they say the universe keeps expanding, right? But is that like is it timed, or do you think maybe it goes out and then it loops back into itself, causing an eternal situation, or do you think it just keeps going and going and we don't know what's on the outer sides of it? And do you think that has anything to do with time or consciousness or anything like that?
I think consciousness ties into all. I think, what do you, oh, come on, great theorist of all time. What's his name? I'm brain farting here.
It's all good.
Albert Einstein had said,
Okay.
you know, the underlying fabric is consciousness, and I do believe that. I think that's where the remote viewing. I've actually done that with my daughters. My kids, their mother passed away about 5 years ago, and they were feeling really lonely. So I did a remote viewing with my daughter when she was sitting on a dock in Key West. And I mean, they've grown up around the whole paranormal and being
Yeah.
talked about. You know, they ties since they were very, very young, which leads in some interesting stories. But so my main key thing was to tie this in when I saw, you know, as far as being a hypnotist, and it was just one tool. After a while, I began to discover a lot of other things like NLP and all this. But to keep it real simple, I think where my career really took off was I wanted to put it into just like a system for people that was simple, you know,
Hmm.
and it all relates to we are patterns in this form. We're nothing but, you know, the mind, psychologists, psychiatrists want to make this so complicated. The brain's a complicated organ. The mind is a collection of your network, and I think the biggest creator of all. And I think you're familiar with, since you talk a lot in science, I'm sure you're familiar with the double slit experiment, correct? Have
The
you ever heard of
double
that?
the double split.
Yeah, the double slit.
It sounds familiar. Can you repeat that for me and my listeners?
Sure.
Or
If you
a
look it
little.
up and give more detail, basically they did a thing with light photons and they shot them at
Okay.
a,
Yeah,
okay,
and they would split, and then when it would go down a different path, it would I can't remember exactly what happened.
it collapses the wave function. Okay.
Hmm.
When there's observer effect, in other words, when
Yeah,
somebody
when
observes,
someone's watching it.
it
Sorry, go
collapses and
ahead.
there's only one. No, no problem. When they don't observe it, it's a wave of potentiality. In other words, that particle, that photon, exists in every single potential. This is tied into what Edgar Casey was talking about. Okay, that there is every possibility, everything that ever was, ever could be, is happening in that time. And the second part of that experiment was what was the most dynamic in the quantum mechanics realm, and that is they put the observer, the camera, on the other side of the shield. So, okay, let's watch what the photon does after it passes through the shield. Okay. And again, the wave function collapsed. There were not multiple lines, there were two. Well, the only thing that could be drawn from this was not only did that particle not become a wave or, you know, collapse, the wave function, it was no longer a wave, but it went back before it entered. So, what you refer to as time being linear, an action on the other side affected it before it began. So, kind of messed with our sense of how time
That's
is linear.
incredible. I do remember watching. There's videos of YouTube of diagrams and stuff and how they explain all that stuff.
Sure,
But
sure. And they put it in layman's terms, which works very
mhm,
well. But
yeah. So why do you think even if a person isn't watching, they just put a camera there, not even a person, and it
because
affects it?
that camera is going to be observed by a person at a later point,
Oh
like the second
shoot.
half of the video is showing. Okay,
So
there
do
is
you
going to be a conscious observation of that video. It
do you
kind of
think
goes back to the whole, if a tree is in and no one's there to observe it,
right,
doesn't make a sense.
right?
Evidently, this is showing no, it doesn't. You know, that's what
Man.
the experiment is showing for us.
So do you think these protons, I know this sounds crazy, but maybe they're conscious? Or do you
Um,
think
I think they're a part of the fabric of consciousness, and I think what that's the one
that makes
thing that
sense?
most of the quantum physicists took out of this is, excuse me, that we interact with it. We are actually, it shows we are,
One.
because a photon is a particle of matter. We
Mhm.
are working with matter through our consciousness to create. So in a sense, we're all multi-creating this universe that we see, and we're interacting with it on a material level. So,
That is incredible. I love
but
to think about things like that. It just opens my mind, and I love to talk to people that know more than me about stuff like this because I feel like everyone gains more perspective and knowledge with talking
absolutely.
with people. So back to the brain. So do you think that the brain? So the scientists say we don't know what consciousness is. But do you think that maybe you were saying maybe we're all tied into one, or do you think it has to do with a God, or do you think maybe there's things in other dimensions that we can't see kind of like radio waves that
We
that
see a
make.
very small part of the visible spectrum of light. We know that.
Yeah, we know
So
that for sure.
what is it we're not seeing? How do psychics do what they do? All this. There's so many different explanations, and even when it gets in, we are. I think when overall somebody asked me on the paranormal end a couple months back, they said, "Well, with all your years of experience, what's your opinion? Everything you've learned in the 30 some years that you've been doing this, what would you say is the, I guess, secrets to the universe or whatever, or is there life after death?" I said, let me put it in this very simple explanation. When a baby is in a car seat in a car, he's aware or she's aware. It's aware it's having an experience. It may be aware of movement. It knows that faces it recognizes are in the object with it. Has no idea what a car is. Doesn't know what a street or the outside world. Has no concept of the universe and any of that. But I think we are that baby in the car in this form. So
Mm,
I think we're constantly struggling for that next level of understanding. But if you were to throw all the information into that baby's brain, what would it begin to base it on? You see what I mean? Where the quandary
yeah,
happened.
for sure. That would be crazy. So that's a great analogy. I always wonder about that also, that I constantly in my subconscious always try to I'm always searching for an answer to the meaning of life, and what is this, and what are we on, and where are we, and why did life exist, and how did it start. And I don't know if the Big Bang's real or not, but it doesn't sound right to me. It sounds crazy. I don't every matter was at the head of a pin and it exploded. Okay, well, what happened before that? How did it get into that point? What was holding it in? I can't even fit all my clothes in my drawer, but you're going to tell me everything that's ever existed, it was in a drop of a pin? That I can't, dude. That doesn't that doesn't make sense to me. Does it make sense to you, the Big Bang and all that stuff?
Um, I think again, I think it's the baby in the car's explanation for the
We
limited
just
amount we're able to understand. It's the best thing we've been able to come up to at this point because we can't even understand. I mean, look at
right.
the human alone in the last 10 years, and we barely are touching. We don't know how it stores all its information, the amount it shouldn't be able to, the amount of things we have in our life. Um, but that's where it came into me that made my journey so interesting and saying, okay, if we have this great supercomputer, this quantum computer up
Right.
here that interacts and forms, excuse me, is interacting with matter, we are co-creating, then I want to come up, I want to tell people to get down to layman's terms and say, okay, well, if you want to change this, do this. Okay, because what I started to get into earlier is there's the brain, which is very complex. We understand
Yes.
very, very minute amount about it, even to this date with all the moderns. We're learning more and more thanks to, FRMIs and all the stuff. We're beginning to watch the changes that happen and how it communicates and does its job. But my concern, and that's why I call my program and what I do mind mechanics, or that I am, is just like cars. Cars can be a very complicated subject, but all basic auto mechanics is based in the same thing. And what do you learn to do as a mechanic? You turn a wrench on this nut, it changes this dynamic system within the car. The human brain is basically the same way because the brain is a slave to the human mind, which is nothing but a neural network. Okay. And obviously, it hooks into consciousness and everything else. Because they know there's no way it's at this point stored physically in our brain. Can't happen. There's not enough memory there for it. So what I think is, let's take that, work with that, and find out, well, when people say, so what does the mind do? It's very simple. It's three things, and it does those three things over and over and over. So it recognizes patterns, it creates patterns, and it plays patterns. That's all it does. So when you learn to work with those three control systems, okay, like let's take what we call anxiety, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
anxiety is just your natural fear, flight, or freeze response. But we've programmed it into a pattern to be attached to all kinds. I've met people that are afraid of pins. I mean, deathly afraid. You
Of
know,
pins.
like yeah, anything. You can attach a fear response to anything. Well, everything you do is just what they call a neuro-associated response. It's a
Okay, so
pattern. You may
can I
go
ask
ahead.
you?
I'm sorry.
Let me ask you a question.
Anytime you have a question.
Okay, yeah, because I don't want to interrupt you, but you're saying all this awesome stuff, and I'm like, okay, I want to ask him. So, you're saying anxiety, right? Because a lot of people deal with anxiety, tons and millions of people, right? Um, do you think there's a way that you can fix that, or is it something neurological, or do you think it's more subconscious? Like, do you think it's a physical thing? Like, because some people are more anxious than others. But
Sure.
like say me,
Both response.
is there anything that I could do? Because you know how we worry about things in the future that haven't even happened or might not even happen, and it
That's a
makes us all anxious. What's that?
that's the definition of worry, in my opinion. Taking
Yeah.
the you worry about past events and you project them on future. So
Mm-hmm. So is there anything that people can do maybe that to help with that
yeah.
consciously instead of taking a stupid pill? Because I
Oh,
think
absolutely.
that's the worst problem that we could possibly do is take someone that's just a little bit anxious instead of talking to them and maybe getting spending hours and hours figuring out what's wrong with them. We just go ahead and write them a script and throw pills at them and mess them up even worse.
Well, and because that's one of the funny things, and I tell people. Matter of fact, there's on my site. If your readers want to go read,
Yes, please.
there is, and I let them put it in their own words. There's a lady named Shelby Payne. I performed on the strip for almost 10 years. And one of the girls I worked with, and it's a pretty lengthy explanation, but she had seen me hypnotize, hundreds of people over the years. She comes and has a 15-minute conversation with me. And now this girl had severe panic attacks. I mean, to the point where they put her in the hospital. Okay. She'd spent $30,000 of her own money, had super anxiety for 20 years. And I didn't even use the word treatment because I had a conversation with her and I reprogrammed her response while we were talking. She goes into detail. Matter of fact, the tagline, I'm looking right at it, it says, I suffered from panic attacks for over 20 years, 15 minutes with this man, and now I can't have one. I've tried. How is this even possible? And in Shelby's story, she goes in. Now, what I want everybody to know, I never, because, Shelby's like, oh, you saved my life. No, I didn't. I'm not a prophet. I have no special powers other than the same ones you have that are right up here.
You've
And
learned
we
to unlock it.
exactly. And not only unlock it, we're using it every day anyway. We've just been programmed to use it against ourselves. Okay. We've been programmed to
Mm,
make negative responsive patterns. What's the first word you learn as a baby?
dad or mom, probably.
It's funny because that's what everybody says. That's the
That's
first
what they
word
think they say, right? We wouldn't know,
that's,
right?
that's what you say usually. What's the first word you learn that your mind's
No.
there you go. Bingo. Okay.
Whoa.
So you're learning your limitations. Okay. Um,
I didn't think about that, dude. That's crazy.
and it
And
is.
it's just you're just right off the bat you're being told no and you're learning negative thoughts and stuff like that.
I got in some hot water years ago on one of the talk shows, national talk show I was on, and there was a psychologist on there, and she didn't even let me finish. But I said one of my main statements that I said, "Listen, you're always being programmed. The power of placebo, right? Of course, everybody's heard about
Yes.
it. I have what's called the nocebo effect also, and that is suggestion, especially if it comes from a source that you have rapport with, and we all have rapport with teachers, doctors. This can literally alter your life. It can alter the chemical composition of your body. You can control every pattern that you produce from that point on. I get into this with smoking. Okay, I'll talk to you a little bit about that later if
Sure.
anybody's interested.
Sure.
Same thing with the anxiety. I walked up and very recently had a guy that I didn't even tell him, I don't say treatment. I simply reprogram the response while we're talking. I look for certain things. When the mind's open to it, I make the suggestion. Their mind reprograms it. Okay. Then we lock it to a new, and boom, he didn't even want a cigarette. 2 weeks later, when I came back, he looked at me and said, what the hell did you do to me? And I started
Dang.
laughing. And I said, I didn't do anything to you. You did something to you. But
So
yeah, we all have this power inside.
so basically you're like you were saying, you're like a mechanic. You see a car, you diagnose it, you see what's wrong with it, and you fix it.
Turn that wrench, the outcome's automatic. That's how your brain works.
That's
It's not
incredible, man.
they want you to take, all these. Why should you take a drug? And here's the easy layman terms I've given to people about a patterned response. Okay. Let's say the mind is a weapon, it's a gun. Okay. And all your psychologists, psychiatrists, everything's based on triggers, triggers, triggers. We've all heard about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, your mind can produce a million triggers for that response, which is the bullet. Okay. So with anxiety, it's a response. If your mind has loaded an anxiety bullet and the trigger goes off, boom, you fire that response, which is anxiety. And your body knows what to do with it. It's a natural part of who you are. Makes you run faster if you're attacked, brings your heart level up, releases adrenaline, et cetera, on and on. Okay. Well, the problem is we've linked this trigger to all kinds of things it shouldn't be. Oh my God, am I going to be late for work? Oh, is there going to be too much traffic on the highway? Boom, 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 boom. Well, now anything you do over and over, your subconscious mind goes, hey, we need this power for processing. So let's make a pattern. So it puts it on play. Okay. Well, if you put your name, my name, let's say you took an old tape recorder and you put, my name is Elijah, stop, and you'd hit the record button. Every time you played that from now on, it says, of course, my name is Elijah.
Elijah. Mm-hmm.
Now, you could do that for 40 years. Okay. And if I came along and said, hey, let's make a little newer version. Let's tell everybody your first and last name, Elijah. Okay. So that comes out of your mouth when you say it. And you push play and record, even over that old pattern space. And you say, my name is Elijah and whatever your last name is. And you hit stop. From then on, what plays? The new recording. Your brain is exactly the same way. Doesn't matter how long you've had a pattern, how many triggers it's linked to. Once you change the bullet, the new bullet is what is fired. And that's where I basically came to all, I don't even want to call it treatments because I don't say treatment or therapy. That implies there's really something wrong with you. Most of the time, there's not really anything wrong with you. You're not broken. You just have the wrong response loaded. So let's load a different response and we can reprogram that. It's a smart bullet. We can reprogram it anytime we want.
I wish there was more people like you instead of doctors. I know doctors do good things, surgeons and stuff like that, but I feel like we're destroying millions and millions and millions of people all over the world by, like I was saying earlier, just giving them a pill. It fixes nothing. I'm sure it hurts their dopamine in their minds.
Well, look at the number of drugs that are out there and the interactions. There's no way you can do those number of drug interactions. And speaking about drugs, this is one thing I tell people. I do this in my seminars all the time. I get them to think about this. I really go deeply into the placebo effect. And, you can ask the average person, how does a drug come to market? Most people have no idea. They know there's some series of tests. Do you know the way that the FDA's regulations for the way every drug has to come to market is, they do what's called double blind, triple blind studies.
Yeah.
And everybody knows, okay, some people get a sugar pill. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are aware of that. But here's the power of that. Okay. What they're already telling you. Basically, the whole definition of whether that drug can be marketable is it has to outperform, and here's the key word, significantly, the placebo effect. So what's the placebo effect? Your mind's own reaction to its own thoughts, that you believed you were taking a real pill. Now, this also gets into the nocebo. They have the negative side effects also, okay? But now this gets into the smoking thing. Most people are addicted to smoking simply because they told their mind a long time ago to create an addiction. Because it's funny, 37 years of treating smokers. I shouldn't say treat. I hate the word. Not a doctor. Okay, I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
I'm a mechanic.
Should
There's
be.
a difference. I do work with doctors. There's a lot of doctors that are coming around. Most people. It's right now. See this lump on my neck? That's Hodgkin's lymphoma. I was given 18 months to live.
What?
11 years ago. Yeah.
No way.
No radiation. And no, I'm not giving medical advice for nobody to do it.
I understand.
I have to put the disclaimer out there.
I know. I get it. So do you think...
I've had ALS for 21 years, if you know what ALS is, Lou Gehrig's disease. Now, 2 of my uncles passed away from it. And the average life expectancy of ALS is 3 to 5 years. I've had it 21 years. So,
that's incredible.
I've done it all with that and with visualizations. Because see, your subconscious mind doesn't really deal with words. That's why when we're trying to talk to it with a cognitive mind and say, I want to do this, well, it really doesn't deal. It negates the language. It deals in pictures. Your mind is a filing system, and it's a filing system full of video and pictures. That's why we're so attracted to video a lot too. Most people want to ask this. Do you know that when I say the difference between the subconscious and we need to start off with looking at the power. We've all heard about it, but your cognitive mind, they know now through these things, the fMRIs and all this data that the neurologists and neuroscientists are coming out with, that your cognitive mind deals with about 2,000 bits of information per second. Not bad for a decent computer, right? You know how much your subconscious deals with? 400 million.
No.
Where do you think most of the processing is taking place at? So if we really want to make changes in our life, we need to tell the top to go into the deep-rooted where all the press play buttons are and say we need outcomes that are beneficial to our life. So you're not broken. You just have an outcome that's not being produced the way you want. But we're taught to think it's a disorder. We're taught to think it's a disease or this. Look how many disorders come out of it. There's a disorder for everything. I heard one
Yes.
being in Las Vegas and living in Las Vegas for many years. Shift work disorder.
Shift
We have
work.
people, and they had this drug being advertised that had a list that was mega long of all these side effects. And I started laughing. Oh, how's Bob doing with the shift work disorder? Oh, great, because but he's dead. He doesn't miss work anymore. One of the side effects was up to and including death. Why would somebody take anything? And I mean, you hear all the psychotic drugs out there. Oh, I'm taking something for an antidepressant. Well, may include thoughts of suicide. There's a great video out there for your listeners, and it's based done by a former I think he's a psychiatrist, but it says what we learned from 80,000 brain scans, and it's amazing. I wish the medical community would pick it up as a whole, and I'll let you guys go watch it. You can type it in YouTube. That's what we learned from 80,000 brain scans, and it comes down to this. And he said something in there that really hit me, because I've gone head to head with a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists, and I'm not discounting their thing, but I'm saying, if I can go in and have a conversation with someone in 15 minutes, and you've been treating this person for 14 years, and I'll give you an example of this later, and wouldn't you come to me and say, how did you do that? But yet they don't. Most of them are so involved in that certificate they have hanging on the wall, they get very defensive, and they say, oh. But back to this guy, jump around on points a lot, because there's a lot of
That's
things that
cool.
fire.
No, I'm listening.
I try and come around. I'll tell your audience that I do try and hold everything back. What he said was, psychiatrists and psychologists are two of the only real medical professionals that never see the organ they treat. They simply sit down and ask you a series of questions, and then they throw a dart at it. That dart is a drug. Okay.
Dang.
Why would we do that? Now, he's not against drug therapy. What he basically did is they started saying, okay, let's look at all these brain scans, and these people were diagnosed manic depressive. Let's look for similarities. And all of a sudden, in the brain, they saw, not as much neural activity in this area of the brain. Oh, that's a commonality among all manic depressives. Okay, well, we have this drug over here that we know increases activity in that part of the brain. So here's what a healthy brain should look like. Let's put this drug based on the brain scan at it. And now maybe that drug was developed for completely something else. Okay. And what he talks about, some of his actual anecdotal cases in there that he's treated, unbelievable, amazing results from people that were deemed untreatable or autistic or, a range of things. And the man, I wish it would start being picked up more, but it's a fringe science right now. It's making headway, but it's pretty much a fringe science. So
That's awesome. So basically it's synthetic. They just see, like you were saying, the scan, and they see, oh, it's not really moving around over here. Let's give them this pill to make it move around.
right.
But they're not seeing what else these pills could be doing to these people. They're tearing them up.
And I'm not saying, because there's a lot of talk show I did years ago. This was a huge one that got a lot of press. And I think this was in the late 80s, if I remember. I can't remember if it was Ricky Lake or one of them I was doing, but I wasn't the primary guest. Obviously, back in those days, hypnotists and all this. This was a fledgling kind of fringe. Yeah, I think I was brought on more to discount. Little did they know. But there were neuroscientists on there. I forget the lady's name, and I'm not going to mention his name but whole first 30 minutes of the show, he's talking about that they went and did this groundbreaking operation that he developed. She was so obese and she was addicted to Pepsi, and it was killing her. Okay.
For
He
sure.
cut her skull. Cut her skull open, and he goes inside with electrodes, and they show this in the part of the
Wow.
broadcast. And he's saying, think about Pepsi. You're trying to mention Pepsi. He literally, by testing, finds the area in her brain that was related to Pepsi. Okay?
That's moving or something, right? Probably.
Well,
Like when she
when
thinks
he put the
Pepsi or something.
electrodes on it, she couldn't talk about it. She didn't feel desire or anything. Okay.
Okay.
Because even anything you call a feeling, anything you call a desire, a want, need, cigarettes, is nothing but an electrical chemical pattern that you produced
Michael.
by your mind that your brain responds to from those neurons. Programming. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I lost you for a second. But
yeah, it looks like we had a hiccup, but
okay. So man, what would you tell to a person that is introverted? Because my girlfriend's very introverted, and most women are extroverted, meaning introverts, they don't really like to be around people. They're kind of to themselves. And extroverts obviously are more social and like to hang out with people. How do you get a person like that? Because I've tried to talk to her and I tried to tell her it's not you. you're not other people aren't thinking about you. You're being worried about other people coming at you, and just all these bad thoughts she's probably having. You know what I mean? They're just making her that way. So I wonder if there's anything. I want to know your opinion on what you would maybe tell someone like that. Michael?
What, Mike? Minute you put a label. Have I lost you again?
Yeah. Did you hear what I was saying, or do you want me to repeat it?
Yeah, I no, I heard every word that you said.
Okay. Okay. So what would you say to something like that?
Yeah, you're just taping. You're going to edit this, correct?
Yeah, I can edit it, but I wanted to catch.
We'll
I
edit
know.
out. You can cut out the losses then, or they can just, hey, this is live. This way.
Yeah, no, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It was only a split second. I just want to catch what you say. So I mean,
yeah. Let me know if it doesn't come through, and I'll even repeat it.
Okay.
Be careful what labels you identify with, because that power of the subconscious that we're talking about. The minute and does she identify? Does she say I'm introverted?
She doesn't even know what that word means, but I know that that's how she feels.
Okay. So she has a series of feelings or situations that she identifies with, though, right?
Yes.
I don't like going out in public. Okay.
Yeah. People might be around, think I'm like, I don't know, just to be honest, she thinks that she makes people itch for some reason. And it's and I'm just yeah. She thinks that she has like bugs on her or something. And she's not crazy at all. She just
no. It's a pattern formed that is a belief for her. Yeah.
I think she had lived in a place where there was like bed bugs or something, so it made her itch. So maybe, like you were saying, that tape recorder has been programmed into her that she's got a physical itch from the stupid, bed bugs, and now it's like locked in.
And see, here's the interesting thing about the subconscious. It does everything it does for two reasons. It wants to keep you happy, keep you safe.
Right.
So it gets better at its job. So if you've given it a pattern that says, hey, I don't like itchiness, or, well, now I don't want to produce that on anyone else. You see what I mean? It starts expanding on its job. This is where anxiety problems come from, because we start with little things and we overcome our natural response. Like, let's say, you're fight or flight. You're in everyday society. Your boss comes in one day, he's yelling at you. Now, your very natural reaction when somebody gets in your face is either run or punch them in the face. Obviously, if you punch your boss, you're no longer going to have a job.
For sure.
So you suppress that response. Then if you run away, you're worried about losing your job or being seen. So you suppress that response. Okay. So your mind starts building a pattern for that over and over. And you do this thousands of times a day. I call it the victim's response. Okay. The first chapter of my new book is all about this. People that experience a very big trauma, you can ask any psychologist or person that knows the human mind. There's an actual big time reaction in the body and the mind of what happens to a severe trauma. Okay. When they're a victim, part of it is just perceiving that they're a victim. It starts looking for answers. Why did this happen to me? Why me? Why did this person do this? There's a million questions, but it starts a really bad negative loop. Okay. Well, we do this in everyday life on a very small, little tiny percentage that builds up cumulatively in our mind. And it happens with this. We say this: she made me mad. He did this. He did. Well, nobody makes you anything. Okay. What you're actually doing is producing a very small victim response. And people say, well, why do you want to blame me? I'm not trying to. It's not about blame. It's about what I preach to everybody: power. You're not in control of everything that happens to you. You're 1,000% in control of how you feel about it and what you do with it. And once you learn those techniques and master that, there's nobody that will get any response out of you don't want to give. You're not reacting anymore. You're acting, which is a conscious intervention of your patterns. So,
and it's amazing. So, back to the Vegas thing. What was your shows like? Would you talk to people about their problems? Would they just come up to you and ask you about your problems? Or
the thing in Vegas I did, because I've been on the road, pretty much most of my life, and married 3 times. It's not real conducive to relationships, the husband being gone.
They don't.
But still friends with all my, my first wife passed away, unfortunately. I'm very young.
Sorry to hear that.
Well, part of life.
Yeah, I know.
I talk about later. I don't experience grief, and this is what I've been told by a friend of mine that's, oh, you're suppressing it. No, see, that's if you understand for me to experience grief, I have to have a grief pattern and think about grief. You're taught and you're given a suggestion, I should say, that you have to grieve. What if they're wrong? Okay. I've lost plenty of people close to me. Here's the very simple, I know it makes, I can see even in the eyes, you're like, wait a minute, what? And it doesn't make sense. It goes against everything that flies in the thing of logic. But think about it. You accept that simply because people in a position of rapport have told you. And I looked at this psychologist, she's very psychiatrist, and I said, let me ask you this. I said, if I don't have a pattern to produce any grief thoughts whatsoever or neural peptides, how am I going to experience grief? How am I even suppressing if it's never created on synaptic level to begin with? She goes, well, how do you do that? I said, now you're entering my territory. Okay. Let me tune your little mind here. Let me put your suggestion in there for you to turn the nut and see how it works for you. I do one simple thing. I don't mourn death. I celebrate life. Okay. Good friend of mine committed suicide a couple of years. Was like, helped me raise my children. He was like a brother and a, companion to me. And, there were questions about why I found out later he had, late stage cancer and he just didn't want to go through what his dad went through. So I understand his reasons for not wanting to suffer and putting it on his own terms. Not that I'm ever condoning suicide.
Yeah, no, I understand.
A lot of things we could have done in the meantime, that we could have done crazy stuff with that. But what I thought was, why would you think in any way that's going to disempower you? And I think you brought this up when I said disempowering thoughts. Okay. When people say, well, in 5 seconds, if you have to tell me how to control my life, if I didn't have time to read your book or I didn't want to sit through a bunch of programs, what's one active pattern control that I can exercise that's simple, that will completely change my life? And this is what I do with real easy. Be aware of now. Say, what am I feeling? What have I thought to feel that way? And then the third question is the most important. Is it empowering me or is it disempowering me? Because it will be one of those two things. Okay. Like people have said, oh, you don't want me to ever get angry. No, there's times when maybe grieving could empower you to do something. That's specific to you. But if you don't ask yourself that, you're just going to produce that pattern. Okay. I don't produce it because to me, there's no empowering response to grief. There's a very empowering response to celebrating life. Okay. And anything, any loss, I treat the same way. I look at it. I take all the good. I remember that. I rinse and repeat. That's all I do. Okay.
See, because
the way to is how I'm feeling. Go ahead.
It's interesting because even just today, I heard a song, and it made me very sad and angry because I actually lost my brother about 3 years ago,
right?
And I miss him dearly, and I get upset, and usually it's songs that trigger it. And I think, am I supposed to be sad? Am I supposed to be pissed off? It's just a range of emotions,
Sure.
even wanting to die, not in a suicidal depression way, but like just to go see my brother. Like I just want to try to, be with him. And I get to
that would relieve the pain.
Right.
If you were with him, it would the pain.
Yeah. And at least I could be where he's at, in heaven. So I don't know. And that's what you were saying. Maybe I shouldn't even be producing those thoughts, and maybe just trying to,
You want what they call therapy?
Yeah. Tell me, dude. Tell me what I should do, because it hurts,
There's two ways. Okay. One is this. You obviously, when I ask you to think back on it, you probably have a picture of it, right?
Of my brother, or
when you think of his death, there's probably a very definite picture that comes up.
Yes, there's pictures that in my mind that I haven't even seen. I can just mentally see the picture of my dead brother in it, to be honest.
That's not empowering, correct?
No, it's horrifying.
Now, the brain is a filing system. Okay. We're going
to and like you were saying, it's a picture. It's not a thought or words. It's a picture that I haven't even seen before. I see it in my mind already, and I've never even seen it.
And that in real life presses play on an automatic response, which is negative. I'm about to show you two reasons why. The one is the brain's a filing system. Okay. And what I mean by that is, so when you look, and then what's funny is I watched your eye access, and when you said, oh, my brother died, your eyes shifted, and they go, because you have your neurology mirrors physiology. Okay. They control each other. So when you think and you see that, and what I mean by when you look at that picture, where is it? I don't mean where is it in the physical world, and your listeners are going to look, or if they see, if you, I don't know if your podcast is just
Mm-hmm.
auditory, his eyes went up and to the right. So that's where that picture is stored for you. Okay. Now it's a negative experience at this point, but
Yes.
let's shift for a second. I want you to do this. Let a really good, happy memory pop up in your life. Just let it pop in your mind real quick. Let me know when you've got it. Just shake your head.
I'm trying to think of the best time I had with my brother. Okay, I got it.
Okay. There you go. And what's interesting, if everybody will notice, his smile just came on his face. His eyes look to the exact opposite side. Okay. Because that memory is stored now for you. It's opposite because your eyes, it's stored
Mm.
to your left. Every good memory you have, Elijah,
Mm-hmm.
is stored on that left hand side. Every bad associated memory you have is stored on the right. And what's interesting is if your listeners are watching you, and I'll give for the ones that don't, if it's an auditory, when I said go to a good memory, your eyes automatically and your brain start to scan to the left because that's where the good filing system is. So what happens with those memories if we actually mess with the file system? If we actually play with where they're stored, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So go back to the memory of your brother.
The good
Okay.
one?
Go to the bad one first. Okay.
Okay.
And I want you to see that picture. Now, is it got a frame around it or no frame around it? I know it's a weird
It's
question.
like if I'm in the room
Okay. So it's a
looking
huge
at it.
art-size picture, right?
Yes.
Okay. The bigger a picture is represented to you in your mind, the more direct emotion you will produce from it.
Mm-hmm.
Size equals intensity. Okay. Hence, this is why a movie screen in a theater is so damn big. It's not so everybody there can see it because it's more than big enough for everybody to see. It's so that it encompasses your full field of vision so that your brain actively becomes a part of the experience. Our memories and our projections do the same thing. Okay. So let's start with that. What I want you to do is go to that picture. Now, is it in color or is it in black and white?
It's in color.
Okay. So you remember the old television sets that had the contrast knob on it?
Yes.
And you could turn that and it would go like all black and white. I want you to just do that on that picture. Imagine it has a control knob. And it's in your mind, of course, so you can access and turn it all the way down so it's a black and white picture. Okay?
Yes.
Nodding. So I say, now I want you to shrink that down from a room size into a postage stamp.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
Now I want you to take that postage stamp and I want you to see it being shot out farther and farther and farther away from you. Okay? So it's going out at a great distance.
That feels good.
Isn't it interesting, the physical
That
result?
is very interesting, dude.
It's way out there to a point where you'd have to look through a telescope to see it. Okay, it's barely even visible. Now watch this. I want you to give me the last four of your phone number backwards. And I know I'm sound crazy. I'll tell you why I did that in a minute.
6766.
Okay. Now you're going to say, "What? Where did that come from, Mike?" I get this a lot. Here's what we did. Okay, we just pressed the stop button on that tape recorder. Now go back to the memory. Watch what happens.
It's gone.
Is it?
It's tiny.
You don't
it's
have
gone.
any. I mean, you still aware it's there.
Yeah. It's
your
shrunken.
emotion.
It's almost to like a blackness.
Right. Because see,
it's gone.
The last time, what I did is called a pattern interrupt. Okay, we were accessing the pattern. We pressed play. Okay, we added new information to the pattern. We pressed record. All right. All you've ever done is press play, and it was a disempowering negative outcome. Again, the bullet. Okay, so we just took the bullet and reprogrammed a smart bullet to say, okay, I have the memory, but it's out there. This is what I've termed in the mind spatial representation. Okay, like when you think about your past, most people do. When you have a memory from your past and you say your past, you see how my eyes are looking. I see my past behind me, literally, physically. I represent it in my mind as behind me, right? Some people represent it left and right. Again, the filing system. When we find out what the filing system is, mind mechanics is all about, okay, well, now we just turn the files around. We mess with where they're located. The automatic responses change because our brain is a slave to our mind. When we change the programming, we change the outcome of the program itself. Okay.
So, that's incredible, Matt. And I noticed when you explained about the picture and how big it was, and you wanted to know that because that was a key point. I noticed as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, hold on. I almost saw where you were going with it. You said, okay, shrink it down, make it black and white, make it smaller, get it further out. I was literally like doing that in my mind and already thinking about that. Like, that's a negative thought that I don't need, period. I don't need to
No.
see it. It doesn't do
Now,
anything for me.
what I want you to do is anytime you think about brother, now, if you could get rid of all those patterns altogether, and if you actually told your mind, hey, this file has no business, no empowering outcome, I don't even want to do it. See, my mind for years, I adopted a pattern early on, and I told it to ignore all those others because you weren't born with the ability to make that determination. Again, the baby in the car, right?
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
something was bad to you or good to you. Now
Mm-hmm.
you've learned to file things that and worry and associate so many different things to them and build patterns that are negative. Why? Why do we need negative
Why?
patterns?
Yeah. They're not,
When we
they're
associate
useless.
negative events with positive outcomes, like I said, everybody's so like with anger. Well, how can death, well, one, I look at death differently. Look at the Irish. They get together and they celebrate and they all drink, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite jokes, the difference between an Irish wedding and an Irish funeral?
No, no.
One
Nothing.
less, one less
Huh?
drunk,
One
one
nice
less.
drunk.
Don't get mad, Irish. I'm part Irish too. So, but the humor in there is they all get together because it makes them feel better. Because what do they do at a wake? Everybody talks about the great times they had in their life.
Yeah.
So, like with my kids missing their mom, and I'm gonna ask you the same thing. I was going to ask you earlier, just when I say,
Mm-hmm.
"Are you missing your brother?" It's okay to miss your brother, but are you missing
Mm-hmm.
him in a good way or bad way? And now you know the answer to that question. Because if you're
Mm-hmm.
missing him in a bad way, you're thinking about the things you didn't get to do, or this or that.
Yeah.
Empowering thought. Miss him in a good way, which and that gets into a whole part of the. I tell people, put down the cell phone and pick up the soul phone, because the remote
Mm.
viewing part of us that you're talking about, once they cross over, you don't lose that experience. They're actually always trying to communicate with you, just to tell you one main thing: hey, I'm okay. I'll see you
Yeah.
later. You get here.
Yeah.
You'll understand. They understand now. They're no longer the baby in the car. So
Mm.
death to them is not the big deal it is to us. Okay. And if they
Yeah.
can communicate that to us, and they try, they're just like saying,
Mm.
hey, I'm okay. And that little voice that you hear in your head when you think about him, same as remote viewing, all they really do in remote viewing is they make that connection to that person. Same as Edgar Casey, to people he didn't even know. He knew a name. Well, that person knew that person. He'd make a try connection to that person, triangulate to them. And he even said, I just hone in on their energy. How many psychics have we heard say that? Some do it
Mm-hmm.
through an item,
Mm-hmm.
psychometry, I think they call it. They'll pick up an item and they can pick up that person's level of energy from it. Well, do we really think, if we take for a second, that that's all legit? And I do believe it is. I've met some very powerful, legitimate psychics that aren't out there doing things for money. They've helped police departments and all this over the years
Mm-hmm.
and do some things that are uncanny. You can't explain where the information comes from. So if we don't lose that when we go to the other side, then why do we really think about death in this whole negative term? They're gone. One, they hate it when we refer to them that way. They're not gone.
Right. Yeah, you're right. They're not
Also,
gone.
they're in a
Yeah.
different form of
It's in
existence
another
that we
realm.
came in,
Mm-hmm.
got it right, that we're just not tuned into. But yet
Mm.
we do have an antenna to it. And I tell people, like, this is the way I explained it to my daughter. And I think when I've given this very layman's representation, I said, if you want to listen on your radio, now you don't see the radio waves, right? And your brain doesn't hear them until you get a very specific tuner, which we call a radio, or now on the internet, and we tune to that frequency. Then we get that station and it pulls it from the air, or through the internet, but let's just say the air. Now, don't we should we think our minds work any differently? But if we're not tuned, what's the tuner? We've never been taught to practice that there's anything like that inside us. Now, psychics seem to have, and some people just seem to be naturally tuned to it. But the way one explained it to me one day, and I've used that analogy ever since, she said, listen, if you want to listen to 107.5, you don't tune into 93.2. Okay. Now, on a radio dial, it's just an assigned frequency. She said, in life, it's your level of vibration. Okay. If you're having good thoughts, you're at a higher energy resonance. And we all know music's a prime example. Why are we all so in tune with music? Why are animals in tune with music? Tesla said, you want to see the secrets of the universe. And I think you know the end of that quote, right? Think in terms of energy, vibration, and there we go.
Vibrations. Yes.
So,
Man.
higher a vibration goes, the higher the energy of the fractals and everything it produces, and the more geometric it becomes. So, were we not to think that we're the same way? And if they pass over to that existence, and we think, and we've seen enough little evidence in this life that we can connect while they're here, well, if they're energy, that doesn't leave. But now we have to tune in, put down the cell phone, pick up the soul phone, and tune it into a very high frequency, because that's the realm they're in. It's a lot higher frequency than we can see, just like the radio waves. So,
Yes.
and
Dang,
see, as
man.
long as you're in those negative thoughts about your brother, you're in a lower frequency. He's not going to be able
Yes.
to communicate
He's
with you
not over
directly.
there. He
He's going
can't
to
type.
go
He can't.
on a
Yeah, he
different wave.
can't tap in.
Right?
I can't hear it.
When you start thinking
Man.
about the love and the experience and the fun things you guys did, boom, it taps into him on the other side. You got the open line. You're picking up the soul
Yeah,
flow, and now you're
man.
dialing as so.
That's incredible, dude. Um, that's just, I mean, that's incredible. I 100% feel it. I mean, I'm listening to you and I'm just soaking it in, and it's
And
helping
you're
me.
feeling
It's
vibration.
literally helping me right now. I've always known that the vibrations are very important, and well, I wouldn't say I've always known. Recently, actually, I'm sorry, I've started to think about vibrations and how they connect with us, and how that if I'm reading negative things, I feel worse, and if I start to think positively, I feel better, and
Yep.
it's the vibrations. And
Again, supercomputer, why would it be any different? If you put negative programming in, what's going to come out?
mhm,
Negative outcome. I mean,
right,
just like earlier when we programmed your response. Okay, now all you have to do is take control and say, okay, if I'm thinking about murder, think about that. Put that in there as your control.
yes,
Am I missing him
yes,
in a good way? Because you know damn well he'd stand right here and say, "Miss me in a good way, bro."
yes,
You
for
know, think
sure.
about all the good things we did and the good times we have to come when we both meet again.
Yeah, and
That's
usually
empowering.
now I don't even want to think about it anymore, because I know when I was grieving also, I would think, man, I wish I could have done this, I wish I could have done that. But that just makes me feel worse, and I should just be thinking about the positive, awesome
Yep.
times we have. And he's not gone, he's there. He's just on another frequency, and
Yep.
I can get closer to him by raising up that frequency, and being in a positive light, like where he is now. And so
Positive.
that helps me, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
That's amazing, man.
That goes
Um,
back to my friend that said, you know, well, you can't not experience grief. I said, sure I can. If years ago I simply took out every grief pattern I'd ever been taught and I erased it and I replaced it with this.
yeah.
Any, I mean, I've been through 3 divorces. I still have
Mhm.
pictures of my ex, very beautiful women. You know, I was married to a Hungarian, Slovakian, you know, these women, but I smile every time. And they say, well, why would you leave that up? Well, because when I look at that picture, okay,
It was
all
great.
I experienced that day. That's it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
experienced everything we experienced together, and that's where my mind stops. Now, what do you think's
Yeah.
produced in me right now? Am I smiling? That's you can see
Yeah.
it genuine.
I
I have no
understand.
response. I'm not going to create another response because I don't have the programming to do
Yeah,
anything
you're
else.
like, why am I thinking about the divorce? We had an amazing time, and look at that picture. It was great. Why would I think about the bad part?
Right. That gets into some of the teachings I do in my seminars. Is I tell people one of the instructions you've been given is forever. Oh, that dog's going to get a forever home. I'm going to find my forever love. We live in a finite existence
Right.
on this planet.
No
So
matter what
why
it is.
one, it devalues what we have. Okay. And this is why I tell
Mm,
people it's so important, why it's disempowering. The very second you start saying forever, one, it's not realistic. Your mind
yeah.
to you doesn't already exist. Okay. Because when you try and think about eternity, the very first thing your mind does is look for an end. It's your that's how you know your cognitive thing is limited. The way you
Hmm.
envision eternity is you don't worry about it. There's no reason for you to worry about it because it's never ending. You just don't have
Right.
to concept period. So
Right.
back to, you know, if you're going to get that response, just take that equation out of it. Don't leave the negatives there. You know, put a positive reprogramming in, and there's the key word, reprogramming. Okay, but none
Yes.
of us, we're taught to just, oh, well, like look at us as men. A guy comes up to us and says, oh, hey, buddy, you know, or talks to us. We're instantly reading body language, and we react, which is what? A played program. Oh, I'm a man. You don't talk to me that way. I'll
Yeah.
punch you in your clothes. You know, well, what happens? And it's funny how many times in my life I've diffused situations, even when I was performing on the strip. You know, we sometimes wouldn't have security during the day, and patron would get too drunk and be sitting at the,
Hmm.
you know, one of the machines, and I would see, and I'd walk over, and I just the biggest smile. I would totally negate what they're doing. Okay, what about a pattern interrupt? You know, they're
Mm,
expecting someone to come up and be, especially if they're looking to be confrontational. I'd go up, hey, buddy, what's up, man? My name's Mike. You know, and they would instantly forget what they were mad about. You'd watch the whole pattern change, or I'd distract them in some way, just like I did with you when I said, hey, what's the last something that didn't fit the situation that the mind was expecting, a
hmm.
pattern. It doesn't know what to do with, how to play that. So
Yeah.
it goes in learning response. then you're highly suggestible the very minute you go into learning response. You can do a lot with that. One of the demonstrations I give is to go out into Fremont Street here, and I walk
Uh-huh.
up to a perfect stranger, and I use what's called a handshake interrupt. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in our culture, this doesn't work in Japan because they don't shake hands. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So in our culture, we know we shake hands that your mind expects that to complete. Okay. If you interrupt that and you think
Mm-hmm.
most people go, hey, what are you doing? If you actually watch one of the videos of me doing it, I literally grab the person's hand and I start instantly giving them suggestions. Okay. And I could put someone in full trance, have them hand me, but I don't even have to do that. What we call hypnosis. The minute that learning response there and you fire suggestions at someone, a suggestion is an instruction. And the
Mm-hmm.
minute you go into a learning response, you're accessing your subconscious directly.
Mm.
So I basically tell them in a minute and 30 seconds that their keys, their wallet, and their watch, I loaned to them a week ago, and they really want to give that back to me. And a perfect stranger will hand it. Now, I don't rob them, people. I don't rob them.
No, I know, but
But it's funny to watch the response that they'll walk away and go, why did I just, and then they come back over and they're like, why did I just hand it to you? That felt perfectly natural. You want the answer? Let's sit around. I'm going to teach you something about your mind right now. It's going to blow your own mind of how you're so programmable. When you get back to earlier about what you were saying about, hey, if you think the powers that be out there haven't learned this a long time ago and they know how program, they call TV and all that programming for a
yeah,
reason.
man, dude, Michael,
Have you ever
you're blowing
fallen
my mind.
asleep in front of the television? I'll ask all your listeners this. This is where it really hits home for people. You ever fall asleep in front of the TV?
I
And
used
then
to a lot.
part of,
Mm-hmm.
part of your dream is instantly what's happening and it's integrating instantaneously with what's happening. But yet you're in a dream state and it's very
Mm-hmm.
real. Well, there's a reason. When you become passive like that, that becomes a part of your experience in your subconscious. And your subconscious thinks it's relative because you're allowing. It's like when I do my shows, just a regular hypnosis show and everything. I love the person that says, "Oh, I ain't listen to this guy. This is all a bunch of bull."
Yeah.
A lot of times, guess what happens? That person that isn't paying attention because they're no longer cognitively blocking my suggestions. And
Mm-hmm.
that probably gets in the number one question about hypnosis that I'll solve for everybody. They say, I can't be hypnotized, or can I be hypnotized? The answer is
Yeah.
both yes and no.
I wanted to
Everybody's,
ask you that.
yeah, and it is the number one. I call it the $1,000,000 question in my business.
Mm-hmm.
If I come up and tell you I'm a hypnotist, okay, you can keep yourself in a highly analytical state of mind to where you won't relax, okay, and go
Mm-hmm.
into that state. And understand this, it's no one's control over you. It can be used for control if you let it go deep enough because you're going to act on some of the suggestions, okay? Hence, like what you see going on stage. But if you are relaxed enough and you're not paying attention, then it's going straight to your subconscious. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it becomes very powerful. And I show people because people think hypnosis is, out.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
out.
Like you're just
It's
like
just,
wiped.
I call it an altered learning state. You talk to 10 hypnotists, you'll probably get 10 different definitions. But the learning is the key thing. Your brain, when it goes into a learning pattern, accepts information. It actually goes into a kind of a passive mode and it's listening. What do I do next? What
So
information am I?
yeah. So man, that's crazy because I was skeptical. And I was also almost not even knowing what to expect from you. And I know I've seen TV like where they just like hypnotize people, and that stuff. And but what you're doing is you're basically altering mind patterns and altering playing tinkering with your thoughts that are
Sure.
causing these problems, and you're basically just fixing them, like you're saying, you're diagnosing them and you're fixing them. And that is a type of, almost like a type of hypnosis on its own, because now I know what to do when I'm thinking negatively. You've taught me, and I will definitely continue to use that because I pretty much instantly felt better. And that's an amazing tool. You need a special tool for
And it's
something.
more
You
powerful.
whip out,
Yep.
yeah, you whip out the tool, and you need the right tool for the job. And so that's what that tells me. And that's pretty amazing, man.
And it is. I think that's the one thing after 30, somebody says, why I would do this all day tomorrow, the rest of my everyday. I mean, my wife's, I go out and I'm talking to people in public about it. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
Huh.
The kids in the,
I'm sorry,
it's
man.
fun.
I'm like trying to block the
Oh, don't worry
dang.
about it, man. Hey, to me,
uh,
why? That's more realistic. You're a dad or whatever, you got
yeah,
kids in your house. I
yeah,
hate it when people try to be too formal. We're having a very down to earth conversation about the very basics of our life here, which is our brain.
yeah.
No, kids are another
Okay.
thing we're taught. what does that do? Create anxiety. Oh my God, it's going to hear the kids. No, man. Don't create an anxiety response for that. Say, hey, yeah, it's my little ones in the background. You know? I have 10
Man,
grandchildren, for God's sakes. Trust me. We're lucky.
wow,
I have to
that's
go. I'm actually
amazing.
in a production RV right now. I have to go lock myself in the RV to get super
Dang,
quiet.
yeah, I need to think something else out. But man, even just that, you were locked into that. You know what I mean? Like even the little things, you're like what you taught me about my brother.
Mm.
You're saying do that for everything,
Well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Why put
right?
it on a, if you know that you've, because that's where that thing comes in, disempowerment. Okay. And it's funny that in our emails, but you really hit on that one word. And I tell people it's either you're either in two states at any one time, empowered or disempowered. Really ain't much in between. And what's funny
Hmm.
is people, oh, there's a gray area. No, there isn't. Your mind switches gears like it did there. You went from really bad memory to
Yeah.
very vast. People that would watch your face, your eye
Hmm.
access, everything. And I tell people physiology. And here's another key thing. Let's say you're in a state and you're like, I just can't change the way I'm thinking. Okay. Which
Hmm.
is actually a lie to yourself. But
Right.
here's a control that you can. And it's funny, Tony Robbins and a lot of other guys too. Physiology controls neurology and vice versa. Okay. So if you can't control the neurology, if you just can't get the thought out of your head,
Hmm.
what is, and you know, they would look when you went to a bad memory, before you even got the memory, your chin went down, your eyes drooped down, you accepted a posture that was already, your physiology was showing that you were going to a bad memory.
I was
Before,
going in there before
when
I
you
even got there. I was going in there.
when you went
It.
to the good memory, your chin came up, your shoulders went back. So let's do that in reverse. If we want to change
Yes.
how we're feeling, how about we change the physiology? If I'm sitting here feeling really depressed, you know, get up, look up
Yeah.
the sky, smile, even if it's a fake smile, and pretty soon you're automatic
Yeah.
produce those neuroreceptors that produce everything begins with your thought, period.
Hmm.
The problem in our everyday lives is we pass that off to a reactive control to patterns, and we have to develop patterns. You could not process that 400 million bits of information and stay cognitive and deal with everything you have to deal with. This is where
Hmm.
autism comes in. I've done a lot of work with that over the years, and I've told people their problem is it's not that they're not in tune with the world, they're hyper tuned to the world. They're in that part, their brain is on overload from it's like watching 3,000 television sets at once.
Yeah.
And the key is to get to that one that's what we call our reality experience or cognitive. Okay. It's
Yeah.
actually being passed to us by a very specific part of our brain because there is so limited a bandwidth. And it's called your, oh, I'm on a brain farting again here. I can tell you an instance of it and then it'll probably come to me while we're talking about it. You ever
Yeah.
get a new car, new shirt or something, all of a sudden you're seeing that everywhere?
Yes. Definitely.
Okay. Oh, yeah, and the see it just popped in. I know it went reticular activation system. And if
Mm.
you look it up, it's actually a part of your brain. Okay,
Hmm.
it's actually a little part in your brain itself
Hmm.
that says this is important to me. Pay attention to it. Okay.
Hmm.
This is why they've gone and proved that a lot of people on motorcycles get hit, and especially from left-hand side accidents. There's so many studies behind the things. Your
Really.
mind, if you don't ride a motorcycle and as
Hmm.
a car and you're thinking about other things and you go out, you can actually look over. And if you look at motorcycle accidents, so many people say, I didn't see him. I swear to God, I didn't see him.
Hmm.
And it's not that they're not being attentive. Their reticular activation system doesn't consider you're worried about big cars coming at you. You don't want to get hit. So you're constantly processing this information.
Hmm.
Threat assessment. It's what your main thing does, your what they call your reactive mind or your cognitive mind. That's its first priority. And this is why things like anxiety and all take, you know, so much effect and affect so many of us is 300 times a second. Your body and your mind is identifying, is that a threat to me? Okay. I want to try a little thing real quick to show you how we can control a part of your body without you even being in hypnosis. You've probably seen it.
Yes.
But I'll explain to you
Absolutely.
what happens too. Because you know what? You are skeptical, and everyone is until I say, so take your hands, okay? Take them like this. Link your
Yep.
fingers together.
Hmm.
Link your fingers together. Push
Like
your
that.
palms together like you got something squeezed between them.
All
Lock
right.
your thumbs down. Take
All
your
right.
index and put them about an inch apart from each other like that.
Okay.
Now stare right between your fingers, not at me, and just imagine we're going to tie a string on those, and it's going to get tighter and tighter. In just a moment, those fingers are going to come together all on their own. Try and keep them apart and find you can't. And just see that? Now try and separate them again. Watch. Try and pull them apart and watch what happens to them. And explain to your audience what's going on. It's working on automatic, isn't it?
If I think about tying my fingers together, I cannot pull them apart.
Right. And
It's
now
like
watch,
it's like they're literally tied together, and I'm trying to pull them. I'm
Now your
like
fingers can.
forcing them.
Yep.
Whoa, dude.
Now you can actually know what's interesting. Now I'm going to explain why that process works. Okay. And that is
Okay.
actually the beginning to what they call a hypnotic trance. You are actually in a different level of brain activity right there.
But
Okay.
before you go into that, let me say something about that. See, when people hear what you do, they think it's like heebie-jeebies, fake, but no, you're just using parts of the brain that really works, and you're using that like a tool, like it's like a power or something. It's not
Yeah.
like I thought it was like, oh, there's just something that makes you do this or that. No, you're like harnessing some kind of uh part of our brains. You're just using it and you're playing with it, really. I just wanted to
Harnessing
get
input to
Mhm.
produce. That's it. We
Yes.
call it suggestion. Okay. And suggestion is very powerful. What's interesting about that is I actually just gave you instruction after instruction, and I increased the instructions from indirect to direct as I went along.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first thing I did is create a learning response. Okay. And the way I did that is one, you have what's called your cognitive or your, remember I told you that once assessing a threat? Well, how
Mm-hmm.
many people up on the street and go, oh, do this and do that? You're going to go, no, wait a minute, man. What do you want? What do you do? That's part of your reactive or your
Yeah.
critical factor, they call it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You'll hear most hypnotists will refer to the bypassing the critical factor is the main and first step to getting someone to go into a hypnotic state. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be deep trance where you see the person's completely what's it look like sleep, but it's not. We use that word as a control because your brain knows what to do with it. And when you get
Mm-hmm.
to that point right there, if you snap and say it quick enough, boom, that person will usually go into a very relaxed, deeper state. But here's what it does. It's a 3-step process. The very first thing I need to do is just bypass your critical factor. Okay. So I
Mm-hmm.
want to get subconscious. And while you're having to cognitively process information, I'm not going to get there. Okay. So I give you a series of directions. And through those directions, your brain's saying, well, okay, this isn't harming me. This isn't. And I
Mm-hmm.
started off with it, Justin. Hey, you want to see something powerful and fun about your mind? Sure. Get
Yeah.
acknowledgement, compliance. Okay. Now, when we got to the part after the 4th or 5th little thing, your brain went, okay, you can listen to this voice. And guess what? It went on automatic. You probably couldn't tell me every step without putting replay that I just told you to do. You could probably tell me the first 3 or 4. Most
Mm-hmm.
people can't after that and realize that I go from very direct suggestion because even a command is a suggestion. I said, do that. You still could have complied or not complied.
Yeah. I didn't have to do
Real
it.
is by the time I said, look at your fingers and not at me,
Mm-hmm.
command.
Right.
Hey, just imagine, command. Okay. And the
Mm-hmm.
minute your imagination turns on, you're in a whole new realm. Okay.
Exactly.
Your central nervous system does not know the difference between real and imagine. No differentiation whatsoever. Your cognitive mind determines what you call real and not real, but your heart rate, all your systems react to what you're thinking and seeing and imagining. Okay. Now, what's very interesting, and if you took your fingers like this right now and you looked around the room and then you look at your fingers, you'll see this kind of hazing effect.
Mm-hmm.
What that is your brain literally downshifting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in normal thought, like right now, and you're cognitively processing, you're in what they call beta. We've all heard of brain waves, right? There's your beta. There's actually ones higher than that. But for normal thought, that's 18 to 40 cycles a second. Okay. It's using up a lot of brain power. Now, you want to get more out of that. I want to bypass that amount. So, well, I need you in a lower state of bandwidth to do that. Okay. The very second I have you fixate on your fingers, and if you ever notice, most stage hypnotists, everybody will do look at that light, pick a point on the wall, look at the spot on your hand. Okay. They're all doing the same thing. They're getting you to focus because the very second you do, your brain, you can watch this on an EEG, electroencephalograph. You go from beta down to alpha. Okay. Which is right a very narrow band between 12 and 15 cycles a second. Okay. You're right on the threshold there of theta, which is right below that. That's where what you call the deep trance or hypnosis happens. Now that person's still fully awake. This is where sleepwalkers, operate and all that. Most people that's ever dealt with a sleepwalker, I had a complete, they don't remember any of it because they're operating completely from the subconscious part of the mind. They can go
I
and do very detailed tasks.
Yes, I felt that, dude. Like I'm feeling these things that you're doing to me, and you're explaining them, which is incredible because I didn't tell you how I felt. You told me how I felt, and I can concur that that's exactly what happened. Like as soon as I did the finger thing, it was like a tractor beam, like it was just like that was like everything like kind of like went away, and I was just like focused on my 2 fingers. And then before you even said, as the second you said tie strings around them, they immediately started to get sucked in. And like you're saying, it's once your imagination gets hooked in, that's it. It's there's no difference between
Part
reality and mm,
is there. I'm talking directly to your subconscious. Okay.
yes.
You're not cognitively. There's the key. All right. Once you let someone in that song on the radio that's playing in the supermarket while you're chopping and thinking about your list is going directly to your subconscious. That's why it's stuck in your mind all day afterwards. You don't even realize where you've heard it.
Mm,
Hypnotists work the same way. Okay. And we are always accepting hypnotic suggestion, or just call it suggestion, period. That's what it does. And
yes.
master manipulators use that in a bad way. Okay. Because
Yeah.
you ever done something in your life and you're like, man, why did I do that? It's because someone got you in a highly suggestive state and you
Mhm,
complied. And you probably
mhm.
knew at the moment, if you'd have thought, then you said, if I'd have thought about it, I wouldn't have done it. That's what
Yeah,
you're saying. If I'd have
for
cognitively
sure.
thought instead of just acted on
Mm,
impulse, which
yeah.
comes from
They
your
put you in a
subconscious.
suggestive state. They make you do it. Then after you do it, you're like, damn, why did I do that? What could I have done differently? You know?
Now, where
And
the physicality happens, okay, and the important part of what people see as an outward response is this. I'm actually suggesting, and there's something very important I did in there, that I said, try and pull your fingers apart and find you can't. And then I'm actually giving a double command. And this is why I tell, don't use the word try. All right.
mm,
Because if I said, Elijah, try and go open that door behind you, the very first thing your mind would go, well, why wouldn't I not be able to?
yeah,
Try builds and is directly linked in a pattern to your mind to make a plan to fail at something you want to do. That's
yeah.
all it.
Mm-hmm.
Never use try.
Yep.
And when used in that context, we can actually get you, because I can say, try and pull your fingers apart and find they're locked, and I can use keywords that are very descriptive. Well, what's happening? You ever play with the little string on a ring game when you were a kid? Think in a circle, it goes in a circle. Thinking back and forth, it goes back and forth.
I've
You ever
never
play?
tried that.
Okay, you can do it right
I
now. You
understand
can
what
do
you're
it with
saying though.
a lot of people done that as a thing. That's
Mm-hmm.
called your idiomotor response. Okay, your
Mm-hmm.
idiomotor are very tiny movements that are on very, very low electrical impulses that
Yeah.
control your responses. Okay.
Mm.
Well, when I said try and find that they're locked, or we didn't go the full way with you and get them locked, but you can actually get them stuck together where you'll say consciously, what's happening is your brain, your subconscious, is sending things to your muscles right here, your little flexor muscles
Mm-hmm.
in the front of your arm, and it's tightening them automatically
Yeah, it
through
was
the
like
motor
physical.
response.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It
you
was
can
a
feel it
physical
getting tight.
thing.
And
Yeah,
then
I
they'll
could
get
feel it.
and if I reinforce and tell your brain, yes, one of the most important things I had in there was a presuppositious. Okay, and I don't like
Mm.
to use big terms, but I presupposed. I told your brain in a moment this is going to happen. Well, since it was in a
Yeah.
learning state, it doesn't qualify that. It goes, oh, okay, I'll make it happen. Basically, if it doesn't, because I've been told that's what's going to happen, so it reacts to it. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
in just a moment, they're going to come together all on their own. So there
Mm-hmm.
was the command that I got that it started saying, okay, I'm going to pull them together
Mm-hmm.
without your words or anything. That's why I said now pull them apart and watch. Because just you'd never done that before, had you? That little
No.
exercise. And
Mm-mm.
what's interesting, if you put your hand, because now you've built a pattern for it because you'd never done it before. It was a
Mm-hmm.
learning experience. So now if you did that and look, now people say, well, I can't take it. Well, sure you can. But the very thing, the harder you try and say, it knows it's supposed to do this. So that's what
Yeah.
the pattern's built for. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what I tell people, you're running on automatic most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Patterns you built mostly in childhood, but it doesn't mean you've been told that they're there and you can't change them. It's not true. There's a new buzzword out there in the last couple of years called neuroplasticity.
I've heard
Your
that word.
your
Go ahead.
brain is rewiring itself at 100,000 neurons per second. Everything
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking, every bit of information I'm giving you is now linking to prior experience, and it's forming new connections, neural
Mm-hmm.
synaptic connections. You're, guess what? It's the programs for your supercomputer. You already experienced part of it because you even said, wow, now next time well, you had empowering thought. You build an
Mm-hmm.
empowering trigger. Next time I think about my
Yes.
brother, I'm going to think about it. And look, everybody, he just smiled the minute we said
Yeah.
my brother.
Yeah, I
We
know
said
because
it.
I'm like, yes, I got that. I
So,
got that. Yes, it is empowering, man. It's something that I have now that I can use, and that's what empowerment is. You know, to be able to help
producing outcomes,
yourself.
producing the outcomes that are desirable in your life is the way I determine what empowering is. You know,
Yes, for sure, man. So, man, dude, all that
well,
stuff
I can
is
run
so.
on and on. Any, I know you probably had some questions.
Yeah.
And go anywhere you want, and I'm just gonna try and keep the answers as direct as I can because
Okay.
Obviously, now if I get paid, I can talk about this for days on end. Trust me.
Yeah, and I don't want to waste too much of your time. I think we had scheduled
You're
for an
not
hour.
wasting.
Huh?
You're not wasting my time at all. You're not wasting.
Okay, cool.
Like I said,
Um,
this is what I do for a living because I love it, and every listener I can reach. And it's funny when people say, "Well, I can't teach you." Absolutely, you can. You know, the one thing I learned by talking to you, the very
hmm,
second I interact with you, I learn the way you perceive the world, which is different
wow,
than any other person I interact with. So I
that's
always gain something from it, and I love
great,
people
man.
opening up that gift, that power. Hey, man, oh my God, I just learned that. I've gone my whole life and didn't realize it was that simple that I control
Yes,
how I feel by what I think. We've heard it. We've not nobody's come along and showed you just how to do it.
exactly. Like you've heard it, but like exactly, I've heard it before, but I've never actually had any kind of because I'm a pretty good learner. I play guitar, drums, bass, my skateboard. I do all these
Nice.
things that take talent and practice and learning. But that's one of those things that I've never learned. So I just soaked that in as much as I could, and I'm
It's
holding
funny.
on to that one.
The movie The Secret, and I've told everybody for years. They're like, "Oh, so you teach The Secret?" I said, "No, because they never tell you what the secret is." I said, "I tell you the
Yeah.
secret, the secret, and that is, it's not what the rich possess. It's not they. All they did is access it. It's in every single one of you. It's your very nature. It's the same instruction set and the same. You know, I love when people go, "Well, Mike, I'm not you, so I can't do that." I said, "Listen, if I do a scan up here, you got the same neurons, you got the same gray
Mhm.
matter, you got the same material I do. It's just wired differently." I said, "So when are
Mm.
you going to take control of the wiring and quit letting somebody else do it? When are you going to wire for success and quit wiring for?" That's what I don't do a lot on business thing because I don't. I tell people it's, you know, there's a lot there. I'd rather teach to empower. You'll come up with all kinds of creative
Yeah.
ways to make money once you realize you can.
Right. Right. Yeah, they go hand in hand. Sure. Sure. And those things are more important than money.
You know, the
Um.
only thing I teach on business, and it's really in every area of life, I tell people this: learn to be, because I get asked all the time, "Well, did you strive for success?" I said, "No, never did." I mean, I
Mm,
live next to Tom Lee from Pawn Stars, Dan Bilzerian, if you know who he is,
uh.
multimillionaire poker player. He's my neighbor 2 doors down, the Property Brothers. You know, I live in a lot around very successful people, but
Mm-hmm.
I've never strove for success. And this is
Mm,
why. That is more about you. I strive to be of value. I strive to be of
mm,
value in my life and my relationships and people I meet for 30 seconds. You know, once you do that and you're of value to people, and even in the smallest way, success is an automatic byproduct of that.
mm.
People want your interaction. You'll
Yeah.
become very valuable instantly. So
Yes, because other people feel it, and other people around you see that you're helping them and being powerful, and that alone creates success. It just breeds success through positivity, and so man, that's so awesome. Um, so let me ask you this: do you think that the news, the governments, the um, so-called doctors, the World Health Organization, do you think they know about some of this stuff and they use it in a negative way?
sure, absolutely they do. You are
Because
being programmed. This current situation, I don't go into a lot of these, is fear is your greatest motivating factor. Your
mm,
mind, your subconscious, and your mind, you do everything you do in your life for one of two reasons: the need to gain pain. I mean, the need to avoid pain. I'm sorry, or the
hmm,
need to gain pleasure. You do everything you do for those two reasons. Okay, and you'll do more, way more, to avoid pain than you will to gain pleasure. So, and
mm.
fear, that's what makes fear the number one control mechanism in human beings. And it
I
is.
f- and I feel that, man. I feel like they're using fear in all
Yep.
these things to take control of us completely. And I see it around me, and I'm fighting it, but I noticed that some people give in to that fear, and they give in for comfort, like you're
Mhm.
saying. They're afraid, so they want to keep safe, so they strike the fear in them,
Right.
and it keeps them safe,
Yep.
and so they just keep playing on that and playing on that, and I feel like these people know what they're doing, like
Oh, absolutely.
it's
Like I
like
said, yeah, they
it's
call it
this
program for a reason. But the
yes
only
it's
way we fight it, we can't control world events. We can't control a lot of what's going on in this country. The
mhm,
one thing we can control is this right here: the
yes,
programming that
definitely,
goes in and the outcomes that come out, no matter what's happening around us. You know, prisoners of
yeah,
war and Hotel Hanai and stuff prove this. They simply took their minds and brains out of the experience they were having and went somewhere else. And people
right,
go, "Well, how?" because there's nothing about that empowered them. When they look back on it later, some of them, I've met some of them personally in my life through travels and through, seminars and things I've done, where they say, real simple. I look back on it later and I said, it's what made me who I am today. And they leave it at that because there's nothing else that was really empowering about that whole thing. They lost buddies. They lost, they didn't dwell on the specifics. Zig Ziglar used to say, people would come up to him, Zig, I've got this, Zig, and he said, I got it. You do. And here's this great motivational, stinking thinking. But whenever people come up to me, I've kind of generalized that term too. They say, and people in my everyday life go, I know, Mike, stinking thinking. Well, then why are you doing it?
Yes.
Like, empowered, disempowered, make the choice. That's it.
Man.
And when people, well, I don't know how to do that, because that's the biggest thing. Like people that come to me with anxiety first, or depression. One of my favorites. Now, I'm not saying, guys, that there isn't clinical depression out there. Okay. With your brain, I think you can actually get your brain. As a matter of fact, I know you can.
I wanted to ask you about that too.
You think negative thoughts long enough, that becomes the chemical state it's going to remain in, because guess what? You've given a pattern that says this is where we want to be. Okay. So it's going to chemically change your brain. Your thoughts control your chemical process, point blank. Okay. So let's take the reverse of that and say, okay, let's get out of that. Okay. So there are chemical depressions out there, but most of them are not it's just like you said, they throw a pill at it. Okay. And what are they going to do? If you want it as a side effect of even them telling you that, it could be, have suicidal thoughts. Okay.
Yeah.
So now you got a suggestion in there from someone in rapport.
Right. Just watching the damn commercial, they're suggesting it to you. Right.
Absolutely.
So that's already understand. Oh, maybe, you take the damn pill and you're like, oh, I should feel suicidal there.
My generation specifically, I did not grow up with TV advertising about drugs. We never heard of the purple pill. We never went and asked our doctor for something. We went and told him our symptoms and said, what do you think? And then they made a diagnosis from there. Most people diagnose themselves now. That's why I asked you earlier, what is your wife? What do you identify with? Because what you identify with is a direct instruction to your subconscious of what you want to create. And guess what? It's a fertile garden. It thinks you've already made the determination of whether that's bad or good for you. So it's going to do its job, and it's going to do it well. And it's going to multiply it.
Yes.
So be careful what you're planting in your garden.
Yes.
And the way to active control is just say that. And if you realize, just like we did, that negative pattern you were having, and I gave you an actual wrench, mind mechanics way, take that wrench and that nut, do this, shrink that down. See, there's several techniques right there that I teach in my books and my seminars and everything, that just do this. And listen, guys, I won't mention one book on here, because I'm not here to sell items. Okay.
No,
I'm here. And everything I do, as a matter of fact, I'm getting ready to start giving, I'm going to tell you, I haven't made this on any podcast or told anybody this. I didn't do a whole lot last year. I had a new book coming out. I was supposed to do a world tour, and it got canceled, of course, because of the current events. But I'll tell you what, it made me, I'm not glad what happened and that people have been sick and ill. Okay. This whole series of events, I'm going to start giving away most of my program. I'm going to start giving away because this is so, like the non-smoking thing. I'm going to start with that. Okay. I've got one that, and I found out one, I don't even call it a treatment. I don't call it that guy that I told you earlier at the feed store that I went into and talked to. And I mean, he's amazed. And it's funny, I'm going to do a backup on the story, because for months I've gone over there and he's like, man, still the original pack of cigarettes the day you were in here. And I never told him he was being treated. I took him to the first thing I asked every smoker in 37 years. Okay. And I say, you remember your first cigarette? They could have been smoking 60 years. Yeah. You know why? Because that was the first instruction set. The base root instruction in their computer when they went from a non-smoker to identifying. And every instruction set below that. Well, guess what? Just like we did a moment ago with the fingers. Once I've got them in that state, okay. One, I'm not saying you're being treated or you're under hypnosis, because then they're going to maybe put up some analytical thought of,
put up a block or something.
Just like you said, you actually felt what was happening. Okay. If we want to change that pattern, we need to access emotion. Okay. That's one of the easiest ways to get your brain to change patterns. Access the emotion, give it a different emotion, give it a different stimulus. So I simply looked at him and I said, well, while you're then I did the finger thing with him while he was thinking about it. I said, well, go back to that memory and just imagine, notice the key similarities. I said, just imagine that you never took that cigarette. And I snapped my fingers, which, most hypnotists will use just a little snap. And I said, just imagine you never smoked a cigarette. You never had to pay all that money you did. And he went, I said, can you imagine that? And he went, yeah. And then I said, oh, by the way, what's your tag number on your car backwards? And the reason I do all that is the minute you have to access a logic center, and you'll watch them look up, you're pressing the stop button on that record that we're putting in. Okay. You're changing the pattern, and it records the last way it was left. Well, how did I just leave him? With an imaginative,
in
Now,
another. Go
here's
ahead.
what I tell people. They said, well, but wait a minute. And he even told me later, 2 weeks when I came back the next time. And he said, Mike, I've tried for 12 years to quit. It's been horrible. I've experienced this. I've experienced, no. I said, yeah.
Mhm.
I said, but now you know the truth, don't you? And he goes, yeah, that my mind created every bit of it. It's not real. I said, what's real? It's your
No.
body. Your body produces it, but
Yeah.
it's not from nicotine, guys. It's
Yeah.
not from
It's your
nicotine.
mind producing it.
Now they say, well, why would it want to do that? I can tell you exactly why. Because your very root level instruction, your body, your mind tried everything it did to reject that experience when you had it. Ask any smoker. They coughed their lungs up or they felt like they were sick, probably, But yet your thoughts, you told your subconscious, I want this. And it
Mm.
went, okay, we'll build an
Mhm.
addictive pattern for it. And then the more times you did it combined with muscle memory and everything else, it's just reinforced that pattern over the years. And you've heard everything that it does to you. And the minute you hear it, again, the nocebo effect, okay, they could have given you a sugar pill with no nicotine, and they could have given you a sugar cigarette. You could smoke them and you'd get the same thing.
And
Now,
that's
what's
so.
interesting, that's been about 6 months ago that he did that. His aunt died. Something happened. Sister, I don't remember what it was. I went over and he was kind of hanging his head down. This will tell you a big part of who I am personally. And it shocked
Mm.
him. And he was kind of hiding in the warehouse. I said, how come last time I've come in here? And his name's Mike as well, funny enough.
Mm.
And I said, Mike hasn't been here. He goes, oh, he's kind of hiding from you. He's in the crap. I said, tell him, get out here, come talk to me. And I knew what it was because he's going to say, I relapsed. And he said, man, I think it was his aunt, I believe, died. It's been really stressful in the family. And I smoked again. I said, okay. And he goes, well, you're not disappointed. And I said, well, one, why would I be disappointed? It doesn't affect my life or my health.
Mhm.
But here's the interesting thing that you can never go back from. I said, when you think about it now, do you know you could quit instantaneously if you wanted to? And he goes, well, yeah. I said, there you go. Because you've already done it. The
Yeah.
negative programming was already removed. You've done it yourself. You've been through the test. I said, and I deal with this. I'm in a lot of non-smoker forums. It's funny because I never smoked a cigarette in my life.
Mhm.
I actually beat up the first guy that ever asked me. He beat me up. Let's be honest. He beat me. It's a very
Man,
negative reinforcement. I stood my ground. So,
yeah.
but here's the thing. I've never smoked a cigarette. I don't want one. These people experience the same thing. And I told him, I said, why would you want to go? But if you want to, in all the smoker forums, I see oh man, I started my journey over, and every post is the same. I ask
Mm.
him, okay, let's say you call it being on the wagon like a drunk does. Okay.
Mhm.
And you get in that wagon and you travel from here in Las Vegas, where I'm at, towards LA, and you get 100 miles into the journey and you jump off the wagon. Yeah. I
Mhm.
said, have you lost the distance? And they go, no. Okay. I said, how many cigarettes have you not smoked in the time you've not been smoking? Well, yeah, okay, whatever number it may be. I said,
Mhm.
have you lost that distance? Wow. I never thought about it like that. I said, exactly. Why would you want to fool yourself into thinking you're starting your journey over?
Yeah, they think that,
That,
oh, just go all the way back to the beginning. No, you're already
yeah,
going this far. You fall off, get back on and go.
is that empowering? Again, see the
Yeah.
basic here. Anything you do, we create our own prison cells, period.
Definitely, dude.
All created by
Definitely.
right here.
It's the mind. The
So
mind
that
is the
is
most powerful. The mind is the most powerful tool in the universe, if you ask me.
yeah,
I think you're just
absolutely.
tapping into it, Mike. It is.
It's then again, people. I say this over because I want. Some say you're just humble. No, I want people to realize because they don't even have to come to me. It's not me. I simply
Mm.
whatever series of things happen in my life that brought me to this point and studying with some of the people I studied with, Tony Robbins and the Silvas and all these people over the years. We all kind of say the same thing. We just say it in a different way. I've just tried to make it very
Mhm.
layman. That's why I
Yeah.
related to mechanics. Turn a wrench. Don't listen to
Yeah.
all this complexity they give you. Your
Mm.
mind's very simple. Recognize patterns, play patterns, record patterns, but do the ones that produce an empowering income or outcome in your life. I'm sorry, which can lead to income. But
Yeah. It's like a computer, like RAM in a computer. It's a random memory storage. It just comes in and out, in and out. And as you're saying, just get the good ones and put it in the right spots.
take
And
out the old,
and yeah, and
recognize,
take up take
override them. And that's what I love. People say, well, I don't know how to do that, Mike. Because I started to say earlier that when people come and they say about depression and all that, and I got interrupted because I got off on the tangent saying, not that there isn't clinical depression, but most of the time, if they haven't been clinical, and usually it's been when they've been to tons of doctors, like Shelby was, over the anxiety and said, I spent $30,000 of my own money. And I said, let me guess, they couldn't find anything. She said,
Mm.
no, because there could be a neurological reason for it, that maybe they could, you had a TBI or something, that your brain isn't receiving the instructions correctly, or they're blocked. But if not, then you're not broken. You simply have natural responses that are wired to incorrect outcomes, period. We can change that. And they say, well, I don't know how. There's the power I'm going to teach you, because I do. I've spent almost 4 decades of my life now over and over refining, doing this, finding this, and it all really comes down to those simple little techniques, and then just applying them in different. That's what the new book's going to go into. But I'll talk to anybody.
Yes.
I'll give you everything in the book. I'm kind of giving a condensed version here. In the book, I break it down into chapters. The first, it's in 3 sections. Relearn the mind, I call it. Okay, because that's what we're doing here. I'm teaching you new ways to think about your mind, and because you've been taught, oh, I accept this, and this is my outcome, or I'm feeling depression, or, well, you don't take responsibility for it. And that's where most people go, Mike, why do you want to blame me? It's not about blame. It's about power.
Yes.
If you say to yourself, I created this and I don't like it, now you can go to the next step, which is you can uncreate it and create what you want. And there's the big stumbling block for everybody, because they go, well, I don't know how. I know. Most of us are never taught how. So now I'm going to give you the wrench to turn. I'm going to give you those techniques, not just tell you can do it. I'm going to show you how to do it.
Yeah,
That's
for
what
sure.
I spent 4 decades of my life learning to do. And
that's a huge.
You may have to vary the patterns a little bit, but the basic techniques are exactly the same for every one of us, because the controls are the same. It's like saying if there's a turn knob, we don't go up and push it. We may push it once and go, oh, well, that didn't affect anything. So our mind learns real quick. We turn it. That's all I've done with the human brain. Push this button, do this. What happens on the outside?
And that's the huge part. You're not just saying, yes, you can do it. You're saying, no, you can do it. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it.
Right.
And that's usually the part you don't get,
Right. You don't. Most people don't, or they give you this very complicated system.
Right. It doesn't make sense. And you're just like,
I said, no, I'm going to make it simple for you. And when you take that very simple active control, then just do it over and over. And guess what? Your mind takes that little control, and it's like when you learn to walk. It's funny. I tell people, I said, were you born? Matter of fact, when I do a lot of my seminars or stage, I've performed in front of 50,000 people, at one time.
Awesome.
Performed in front of 5. I love it either way. And I usually started off with this, and it's funny to watch the big auditoriums when there's big billing for me. The mind mechanic, you won't believe what he's capable. He's going to show you things you've never seen. So the very first thing is I asked for a volunteer from the audience. And I said, you guys want to see something absolutely amazing? I'm just going to pick somebody at random. And I bring them up there and I have them stand. And I go, ain't that amazing? And you can see faces go, how much did we pay to see this guy? I said, but listen, here's what's so interesting about this. And you can look this up on Google. I said, you're controlling, is it 300 muscles all at once? I think 325 to stand. I said, no, were you born with that ability? No. I said, so what is it? What enables you to control? And then I have the person standing up there do this little thing with their fingers where I have them try and switch. Same way as somebody ever asked you to do that the first time,
Yeah.
And if you're not, you have to think about it.
Yeah.
You
if you can't do it.
A pattern to make the muscles work that way. Then you can do it over. Now I don't even think about it. I
Right.
just do it. We can all think about Spock once we've done it and do it. Okay. Learned. It's called neuro-associative repatterning. Okay. We're taking a pattern. We've never learned that one before. We'll make a new spot for that. The muscles will control that. Okay. That response, everything we do is a pattern. Everything. The way you think, the way you react, what you situate, way you in life, how you, make love, how you argue. You and your wife argue in a pattern. Every pattern interrupts are very important in people too. My first wife and I got to where, because we would, like most married couples, we were married for quite a while.
Yeah.
Had a wonderful relationship, but we got into that thing of arguing, it was stressful. I was on the road a lot, and we did what's called a pattern. Mine was the stupidest thing in the world. I'm going to look like a fool, and I love looking like a fool. You can laugh at me, you can laugh at yourself. And my wife and I would be in the middle of a dead argument, and I'd go to her. I start laughing. She had her own. Okay, but look what it does. It just breaks the, and then what's funny? Probably 3 minutes later, what were we arguing about? And then we had the same response. Who cares? Do we want to argue? No, I love you. Love you too. Let's move on. Because you argue in the same fashion every time, especially once you get to know someone you've been married with. But then if you actually watch your arguments, they will progress in the exact same way all the time. And women are methodical about arguing, guys. Don't do battle with the brain. Like, women are natural brain ninjas. They put that little tick in there. If you ever watch it, it's perfect. Don't mess with them. They're gonna bomb you. It's not gonna hit you during the argument, but it'll get you later.
Yeah. And that's amazing, man. like you were saying earlier, you caught me trying to shield my mic because there was voices in the other room. You're saying you can do it with every tiny little thing. And I think once you master that, you can get maybe to where the point where you're at. You know, it's like a guitar riff. You keep practicing over and over and over and over until you get it down and you can play perfect. You're like, man, I never thought I could play this good, and I can do it now. It's like that, you know.
You think of an A chord, boom, your fingers automatically. You don't have to. Not when you first learn it, you had to repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. You know, what's interesting is things like smoking, you know, and all that. We can destroy old patterns that we've learned for and replace them with that fast. I just showed you, boom, new outcome. You know, they want to tell you, oh, any new habit takes 28 days. I'll prove you wrong every time. I'll do it in about 5 seconds for most people. Mine would be
And then I actually quit drinking. I haven't drank alcohol in 9 years.
fantastic.
And I was a pretty hardcore alcoholic, and I did drugs. And I just had this thing where I felt like it was mental, and I didn't feel like I needed a doctor. I didn't feel like I needed a therapist. I didn't feel like I needed pills or AA. I just said it has to be mental. There has to be something in my mind that can help me quit this thing. And I wanted to prove that it was mental, and I did.
How'd you did you go to any 12-step programs or did you?
Nope.
I'm just you did it.
Nope.
Fantastic. You did
I
it
just
right
said, you know what? I said, you know what? I can quit. It's mental. I'm going to do it. And I did it. And I took it day by day, week by week. And I just said, okay, I don't care if all my friends are going out partying still. I don't care if they're all having drinking and going out. I'm just going to do this, stay sober, and just keep doing it and just keep living my life that way. And I just saw it as a positive thing, like you're saying, just keeping a positive thing in my mind, like, oh man, this is awesome. I'm sober. I can take each week by week. I'm waking up early. I'm feeling great. My body doesn't feel like crap. I'm getting all this stuff done. I'm being productive. I'm like, you know what I mean? Just positive thought after positive thought. I'm saving money. And it just snowballed into this huge thing where I don't even want to drink. I just don't drink.
Because you had no desire to that because your subconscious received the new instructions, made a new pattern.
Yeah.
Not enough. Here's one of the things, and I'm not nothing against any 12-step program. I know it works for a lot of people. Okay?
Yeah.
I've gone to some of them and done and said this. I said, what if, because I've had people in the 12-step program, well, don't be, you know, telling any of our people that, I said, listen, you have some people that come back over and over and over. Okay, what I want them to know is, and I said, let me ask you this as the teacher of the course. If I can show you irrefutably that you can do 12 steps in 3, you'll let go of your old programming. Would you be willing to share that to people that are having issues with the other? I said, here's the problem with step number 1. Remember we talked about the subconscious and labels and identifier? The minute you say, what do they do at the beginning of every single meeting? What is drug? I'm a drug addict. I'm an alcoholic. Well, guess what?
Program.
You identify, your subconscious says, okay, I know the patterns for that. I'll produce them, no problem. So just like the smoker, non-smoker, when people come up and ask me, you want a cigarette? I don't say, well, I'm a non-smoker. I say, I don't smoke, which is my natural response because I am a non-smoker. Okay. So the identity provides the response. That's what I'm trying to get to in that. So that's why you want a cigarette, because you've identified as a smoker. And
I'm a smoker. I need to smoke. I'm a smoker. That's what I am. That's who I am.
I'm going to release, and I'll tell you what, I'll give you the exclusive because you're one of the first podcasts I've done now in a while since I kind of took 2020 off since I just
wow. Thank you, man.
I'm going to release my program here soon of exactly what I did with that guy. And I think because of the server I'm putting in, I think you have to donate $1. Whoopee, you know, I've done courses for years where I charge people and I limit it to 30 people at a time. I started limiting it to 10, and you can go on any of my event pages and see that. And the reason I limit is because I work with people one-on-one.
Right.
But now
it seems better.
I'm one person. I can only reach so many people, and I want to give this to the world. I've seen it be so powerful, and I've refined it over the 37 years into the thing there. And I've even struggled a little bit with that. Okay, how come now do I tell somebody that they're not being treated when they're coming here because they think, I just say, hey, you want to quit smoking? Do this. Okay, listen to this. And if it doesn't completely see, then do it again. Do it because one of these times it's going to click. That it's a simple process, just like that guy experienced, and he can tell you. But I'm going to put it on and it's just you donate $1 or whatever, and then you watch it as like a replay or whatever. And I'm speaking directly to you, just like if I was talking to you. I try and talk to that person on the screen at the time.
Yeah.
And I want to reach as many people. And you know, if I had donated to charity, whatever, my financial guys are having a fit. They're like,
Mhm.
Mike, after a loss that we took last year, I said, I don't care. You know,
Mm.
I'm 55 this month. I said, you know, I live a very comfortable life. I live a very good, money's never been my idea of happiness. I've been broke and I've
Yeah,
been very financially stable, and I'm the same happy either way.
that's
Okay. My
awesome.
neighbor down here is a prime example of it. Got more money, knows what to do with all of it. But sometimes he says, even I buy a Ferrari, it's like a 5 out of 10 for me now, and I get rid of it a couple of days later because that's not what brings
Wow.
him. It's happiness is a state of mind. I do a whole thing on that. People go, I want to be happy. And I said, I went out and did a video where I asked 100 people that, and it's called conditional happiness. One of the hugest mistakes we make in life. But it's funny, we're trained to do this. Oh, you going for that promotion. You hinge your happiness on
Mm.
things. I'm going to be happy when I get married, when I meet my soulmate, when I do this. And I asked 100 people. I said, I took the mic and I said, I'm going to be happy. And I aimed it at them. And it's funny. I never once got the response that I would give them. And I told every person the same thing, you know, off camera. It just shows me going, I'll be happy. And I got the same things when I get a new job, when I'm finding, when I'm rich, when I'm famous, and I said, I'm like, no. And they're like, what? How'd you answer it? And I said, simple. Be happy right now.
Yeah,
Well,
that's what I
how's that
thought you
possible?
were gonna say
Yeah. Hey, bingo.
because it makes sense. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. You're always
Happiness is
pushing it off.
it's a state of mind, and that state of mind is simply, and again, nervous system doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. So if you sit here, you
It's
think,
not a physical thing. Yeah, it's not a physical thing. Happiness isn't a physical thing. You can't grab it. You can't buy it. You can't physically touch it. It's a state of mind. And if that's the case, then you can have it right away. You can
so
have it instantly.
why are they telling us anything else is? Why are they saying depression is a state? You know, it's this. It's like something you catch. You don't catch that. You just you know. But people, I don't know. I guess doc, and trust me, the emergency room over here knows me real well, right around the corner from my house. Um, my kids growing up had some very severe accidents. Okay,
Mm.
and hypnosis was used throughout, you know, their childhood. For really didn't have many problems out of my girls or anything, but one of them like had a compound fracture on her arm, bone sticking out of her arm. You know, we take her in, drive up in the limo, we're sitting there, I put her in the thing, they come out, what's wrong, because she's leaning over like this. I've got her so she's not experiencing pain. I've got her in a
Mhm.
trance state. I tell the ER person that, and they roll their eyes, right? And I said, oh, a non-believer. I said, watch this. And I said, Samantha, awake. She wakes, screams, bloody murder. And she's like, okay. When I went, sleep, boom, out she goes. No pain. We get into the emergency room. Okay. And we're in there in the triage area. And we need this, we need that one. I said, listen, I gave her a set of instructions. I said, while she's in a trance state, what they call sleep. Okay.
Mm.
She's there perfectly relaxed, no pain, no nothing. And I
Sorry, go
said,
ahead.
no, no problem. It's like, honey, yes. Why are you running over? I've got dinner
Yeah.
ready. I know. I've been married. I know.
Uh-huh.
So, and you're going to have to cut me off. I'll tell you when you're
Yeah,
done.
yeah,
Just
I know it. Yeah, it's coming up. She's already
yeah, yeah. She's
go.
gonna okay. And we can always do a second or third session.
Definitely, man. If you would, I would love to have you on again, man. In a few months when you're ready. This has been
Yeah.
awesome.
Call-ins. I love doing call-ins and taking audience questions and helping them with problems on the air. You know,
Mhm.
things like that. But long story short, you know, we get in there and I gave her a series of instructions to get up, walk, and she was like a zombie, just like a sleepwalker going across. She
Mhm.
went and got her little cup, gave her urine, came back, did this, and that's happened on numerous occasions. One, my girl that's now my PA, helped the baby. I'll go into some of these. She went into premature labor on multiple occasions. Let my hypnotist back. No, no, no. They've tried everything, tried every drug. I came back, sleep. Body doesn't need this, going to damage the child. No, no, no. Awake,
Mhm.
stops. The doctors are like, okay, we can't explain it, but we see it.
Mm.
I
Yeah, I
tried to get
believe it.
paying for the C-section, but they weren't going up. They have centers in Europe where you can go to that for smaller. They have hypnotists on staff that's what they go and
Dang,
do. Um, I'll
that's
explain in another,
amazing.
and I'll tell you all
Yeah,
about tell your body, tell your people how to manage pain very instantly. And we'll go
M-
into that in another session.
Michael, thank you so much, man. This has been an eye-opening,
My
amazing
pleasure. Thanks for having
conversation.
me on. Having me on.
Go ahead and tell everybody what you're doing next and where they can find you, and you know, that kind of thing, where they can look you up.
I'm doing I do a lot of corporate stuff that's kind of closed to the outside people. So some of my public events are still right now because we're on the hinge. Are we going to release the book? I'm going to release. I want to release either way. So they
Mhm.
had me on this whole 24 city tour in Europe and all over the United States after that.
Mhm.
So I think I'm just going to go ahead and release, and then we're going to come. I'd rather just keep doing go to the individual cities and meet people like you want to. I don't care if I do a group of 5 or 30 or
Mm-hmm.
50 or 100. I like working with people one-on-one, so I try to keep the groups small. And
Okay.
just reach as many people as I can. But you can go to my website. You can look on Facebook. It's Facebook.com/learn mind mechanics. And I'm constantly doing, like, when you post yours, I'll post a link to this on there. I don't know how many thousands of people are in that group already. And you can get in there and ask me direct questions. And that's me responding to it. And I still, to this day, always try and give, I don't pass that off to people. So sometimes I may just say, here's a video I did on that before. But if you come to me and I have the time available and you say, Mike, this is really detrimenting my life, and I have no money, I will try and help you with it any way I can. If it takes my personal time, whatever. I am one person, so I am limited to, time
Right.
constraints like you.
Right.
But I'm
Oh,
grown and single and can do whatever I want with my time, and I love helping people. So please, just like earlier you said, you're never wasting my time or taking up my time,
okay.
or I give it willingly, and I love doing what I do. So
Okay, great, Mike. I'll put your link in the description so people can look it up. I definitely want to check out everything you have to offer. I've been blown away. Um, like I said, I came in skeptical but open-minded, and I'm not
skepticism
skeptical.
is
I
good.
just wanted to
Well,
see what it was like to talk to someone that has the power that you have. And I'm so glad we got to talk, because my brother thing really affected me, and I think I'm definitely going to be using that pool. And like you were saying, it's very empowering, and that's the best tool you can have. I know people are going to benefit from this conversation, and I'd love to have you back if you would let me.
absolutely, anytime. More than welcome
Great,
to.
Michael. Okay,
People,
thank you.
what's
Thank
wife
you.
cooking for dinner, by the way, so I can live vicariously through you?
We had a chicken salad.
Oh, all right,
It was
cool.
good. It was really good. Chicken and lettuce and tomato.
I love the chicken salad.
Oh yeah.
I'm a wonderful cook, but I will not cook for myself. I raised 3 of my kids, by myself for 15 years, but I won't cook for myself to save my life. All
Again,
right,
thank you
brother.
so much,
Have fun.
Michael. I'll talk to
Thank
you soon,
you.
man, and I'll post it as soon as I get it up.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much, man. Talk to you later.
All right. Stay
Bye.
empowered. Bye.
Thank you, man.
Oh, yeah.